All right. Ready to rock?
Yep.
Okay, so here we are, the newly rebranded, I know it looks the same except for the mics, and who's sitting next to me, Iron Age Radio. So that's what we're going with now. Strong and Petty it's had a great run. We really enjoyed ourselves doing that, but the Petty had left. It was just me as the Strong, so it just didn't make sense anymore to do it that way. For anybody who's not aware, this is Iron Age, where we shoot it. And this is our radio show. I'm joined here by one of, I would say, the number one mind in Manitoba strength sports. He's working towards his master's degree. He's the best deadlifter in the province right now, strongman or powerlifting. He's one of our coaches here for our Iron Age powerlifting, Michael Thrones.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, happy to do it, man. So we're gonna get into the reason I wanted to have you on today is because we watched the World Deadlift Championships and we watched the USA Strongman Championships held in Las Vegas by Giants Live, and I always enjoy the insight that you have of those. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to get a little bit into sort of the what we're doing now with the podcast, what we're doing moving forward. So we want to maintain a weekly thing with this, make it a weekly episodic thing. There's just not always things that happen in local or even Western strongman every week, though. Mm-hmm. So we're going to fill the gaps with talking about the big shows, talking about the pro stuff, and also covering everything that happens in Western Canadian strongman for all of our loyal listeners and our friends. You guys are our friends more than anything else. So first,
I think a good way to put it is serving Western Canadian strongman.
That's a great way
to
put it.
All the interests. So trying to cover a little bit more of the shows that are happening throughout Western Canada. Obviously still Manitoba focused, but it's to shine a light on opportunities that people can have to compete outside the province of Manitoba, and to shine a light on some of the other top Western athletes. It's hard, we're not going to be able to cover every local show that happens, but some of the bigger ones that are happening outside, and trying to get Manitoba some more exposure.
For sure. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that there's so much that happens in Western Canada that we have a group chat with the Western Pro guys, and we're always asking questions about, say that they just had BC Strongest Man. It's who the guys to watch out for that one? Who did a really good job when they do SAS Provincials? It was all right, who really ran away with it for that show? Who's the guy to start paying attention to? And I think that's just an interesting conversation to have, is that when we look at, let's say something that we're both very familiar with, when we look at the Manitoba scene, it's who are the guys that are ready to make that next step out into the Pro-Am and then maybe even the Pro Circuit after that. And I think that we can start covering that a little bit more too with, you and I pay pretty close attention to what's happening in the Western Canadian strongman scene. And I think that we could shine a little bit more of a light on that. So people are, when a guy comes up and does great at Nationals this year, maybe they're a little more familiar with him already. Maybe they've heard something about him before, he did Devon's days, or he did, whatever, or and especially to the women, the strongest women in the West. We want to be able to make sure that the women are getting their shine too, that when they're doing really awesome stuff. I'm really excited to talk about, say, Swick. We'll probably do a little conversation about that one coming up. I think that it's easy for something like, say, Canada's Strongest Man to get so much of the attention, but Swick is turning into an incredibly competitive, you always see, think of Sam as sort of a queen bee, as they call her, but she has some people who are hot on her heels this year, and I'm really, really excited for that one.
Yeah, how do you want to get into a bit of a Swick?
Fuck it, let's do it. Let's talk a little bit about Swick before we get into the deadlift stuff.
Because I've been, as Tyler's mentioned on the podcast before, I'm running the live stream for Nationals this year, and Max and Sam are very gracious to have me out to run that for them.
Yeah, shouts out to them for making that happen, because they paid attention to the work that you've done. They liked it, and they wanted to have you out there.
And so I've been trying to. It can be really hard to find information, especially the Atlantic Canada scene. It can be hard for us to get information on them, and so I've been kind of scouring everything I could to find some of the newer competitors, maybe newer to Swick or newer to Nationals. But I think there's a lot of really promising women going out there. There is still the top dogs Sam Beliveau, Samantha Koski Moffat. Don't know if I said that middle portion of her name right.
That sounded right. I don't know, but Jose de la Chevrotier, and these are all ones that you're these are all real threats. Jose is huge right now. Like, she just posted a picture of herself from, and I should say, actually, she's not, maybe not way bigger, but she's so muscular right now. Like, she's just really in great shape right now. And for how conditioning heavy this Swick show is going to be, I think that she's looking really, really good for it. Like, she's not holding a lot of like extra fluff on the frame or anything. And I think that's like, you can't really have that for this competition with the events they have.
I think it's going to really favor the lighter athletes.
Yeah.
A lot of the newer ones making their Swick debut or even nationals debut. Some of them, they're bigger. I'm sure they got a ton of static strength. But yeah, being such a dynamic competition, I'm not sure if it's going to lend well to that. But yeah, the ones like Sam, Samantha, and Jocelyn too. She was one that I did want to point out because she won U82 nationals last year, and she's now moved up to the Open. And she just seems to be like, her strength is blowing up as she's moved up in body weight.
Yeah, she's put on a little bit of size, and it's really paid off for her. Like, she's really. I draw so much of my comparisons to like the men's side of things because that's just what we've seen for so long. And you've seen guys where they try to put on as much size as they can or get as big as they can, and it just doesn't always work out the way that I think that they imagine or whatever. But for Jocelyn, like, her strength has really gone through the roof. Like, it's really been a successful transition for her.
And she really doesn't seem to have slowed down at all.
No.
So it's going to be awesome to see her compete.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that one. I'm looking forward to. I get to have the opportunity to do the commentary. I'm going to be heading out there, so listen for my voice on the live stream. We'll have more time to talk a little bit more about the nationals and Swick stuff coming up. But we're very excited.
We'll actually have a prepped one.
yeah, we'll have one with some thought put into it and a little more attention. But one thing that we did watch and we did pay attention to and we have some thoughts on was the combination show of the World Deadlift Championships and the USA Strongman Championships that were held in Las Vegas with Giants Live over last weekend.
Yeah.
Right? So we both watched it. We both had thoughts on it. I think that what kind of the way that I'd like to discuss it, if you're cool with it, is in two parts: the presentation of the show itself, and then the actual competition.
Yeah, I think that's good because I kind of felt like after Shaw, we were kind of like really focused on the presentation, and I think that's just because like you as a promoter, you're looking for how is the show being put on. I'm looking at like what can I steal for my own live streams.
For sure. Yeah.
So like we were. I think we get, for you and I specifically, get a bit focused on the actual production of the competition. So splitting into parts is good. So let's split it in half, but let's start with the production part of it because we'll talk about like that's the stuff that the athletes couldn't do much about. And we'll end with the good part, which is the actual competition. So I think that most people knew, or it became very apparent after watching some of the stream that like the ticket sales like were not what they were looking for this particular competition. I think that they thought that like Vegas would be like a good opportunity to get, maybe a lot of just like looky-loos kind of people to checking it out, seeing what's out there, or maybe people would plan a trip to Vegas to go see the competition or whatever. And it just didn't seem to really pan out that way. They were in this very, very big auditorium, arena, whatever. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but arena.
A big building of some kind, and there was probably two what would you call it? Like sections above levels. Yeah. Thank you. That were not being used at all. So I think that they really pulled people down to them in that bottom section, and it's like that happens. Like whatever. That's sometimes shows just don't work. Like I think that it was an interesting gamble to do Vegas when it's like on one hand like people want stuff to do there, so they're gonna check things out, but like there's just so much to do there. Like it's you have to really prioritize spending a day, or 4 or 5 hours of your day in one place, and you'd have to really want to be there to do that.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that it didn't do better, just because Vegas is also like it's big in bodybuilding, it's big in strongman, like Dungeon Strength is there.
Yep.
Yeah, right in Vegas. So like you have a lot of good strongmen around there, but ultimately it is still a small community. So yeah, you have to be catering to more than just the people who are already paying attention.
Yeah, and I think maybe that like. Sorry, I don't have my mic stand yet, so this thing's kind of annoying. But I think maybe they thought like deadlift world champions, like that's got to pop a number, that's got to get people thinking about it, and I guess it just didn't really. I don't know, like it just didn't really have the effect that they were hoping for. And bad ticket sales aside, there's not really much. It seemed like they were promoting it. They did what they could. It just wasn't just didn't click. Well, whatever. But the problem with that became that trying to hide the poor turnout with under veil of darkness. It was pitch black in the arena. There was a few times where it was like basically a light over where the athletes were lifting, at least for the deadlift, and it made for a cool sort of like silhouetted like
spotlight vibe.
Yeah, like a TikTok kind of feeling thing, whatever. Like it looked cool, but it didn't do much for like someone who's trying to watch an athletic event, in my mind. The same problem that I had with the log, where you can't see the fucking judge in the shot. So you're just like kind of watching, waiting for them to get like, assuming they're getting some kind of a down signal. You can't see the referee's hand at all or anything. So they're just pulling and pulling until they're not, and you hope that they got some sort of a down signal, but you're not really sure until you find out afterwards. That's a really small thing that I'd really like to see changed about these.
That's a good point. I didn't even notice that because like luckily there wasn't that many like iffy calls.
No.
I didn't even notice that, but yeah, that's
it's a thing they've done in all of their like world record breaking attempt shows, and it's just I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then so they would shoot, say, like Robert Oberst, and I always forget his name, the English guy who does the
Neil Pickup.
And they would
remember trucks.
There you go. That'll make it easier. They're always like, they were kind of like half in darkness and half out, and it was just it made for a really strange viewing experience. And they also had this like silvery filter over it.
Yeah, that they're using initially. They stopped using that after like the second round of deadlifts or something.
See, I thought that, but they didn't, because there's a clip of Mitch Hooper walking over to talk to Neil Pickup. Remember his name this time, and he has the silver filter on him still. So I don't know if it was like, and Jeffers said that Keelan explained to him that it was some sort. It's like she knew what the filter was. It's something that they use for that kind of stuff, whatever. But it didn't lend itself to any kind of like. I think it was supposed to look like cooler, like. But again, it looked like a fucking TikTok video. It didn't look like an athletic event, which is like just shoot it like it's a sport. You know what I mean? Like that's for my money at least. I don't know. Maybe when the people that they're trying to appeal to, the people who aren't already fans, see that and they think, oh, that looks fucking cool. Maybe it works. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. Did it work for you?
No, like to be honest, I thought something was wrong with my computer when I was watching it. And then I realized, oh, it's only on some cameras, some shots. So yeah, it didn't do anything for me. I thought it looked strange. Maybe it was something like you said, like the lighting had to be adjusted to kind of hide the low sales. Maybe it was something with that. Maybe it was just like the balance was off. Yeah. Maybe they had anticipated a brighter competition floor.
And that's I kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt of things like that. Is like they're trying to use like old production tricks of like, hey, we'll darken the crowd so you can't see who's out there. But then maybe all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, now we can't see what's happening on the platform. So maybe that'd be an unfortunate thing if that's what it was. But I want to try to, like I said, give the benefit of the doubt on things that I don't know exactly how it went down or whatever. Right?
Yeah, and this is just. It's criticisms, but it's not like us saying that like it like ruined the show or anything.
No,
it's
not
just
at all.
It's just feedback.
Yeah, no, it's just and they're trying things and whatever. I was watching Mitch Hooper's breakdown of the competition, and if I ever need to remind myself why I think that he's a dank, I just have to watch his YouTube videos and I get very quickly reminded. But he was talking about like he used the analogy of like if you know what you're doing at your job, but you started a new job. And then you everyone sees that first day on the job, and you have a new software you have to work with, or you have a new coworker or whatever. Do you know what he's referring to with that? Like who? Like was this some sort of like new endeavor? Like is it just talking about being in Vegas? Was that the new?
I guess so.
I didn't understand the analogy because it was like Giants Live was put on many shows and streamed many shows, and it just seemed like a weird thing to be like, oh, it's someone's first day or someone like I just
maybe it wasn't their usual production team. Maybe like contracted out or something.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could believe that because if they're usually doing like say the Strongman Classic in England, maybe it wasn't in the budget to fly that whole crew to Las Vegas. But I just didn't understand it. So maybe if you know what he was talking about, put it in the comments.
Rented equipment, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So beyond that, like the only real I guess like issue you could say that I had with it was, for me personally, it felt like there was a ton of downtime in between events. And then the events themselves were kind of like a small portion of the competition, except for the wrecking ball that went on fucking forever. But like say like the car yoke, you sit there for a long time, you're waiting for it, and then the events the competition itself is so fast that it feels like you're done and now you're waiting again. And it just felt like it was and I don't know that there's like an answer to that to make that faster or like make that more that feel more seamless or whatever. But it just felt like this whole time that I was watching this, it was a lot of waiting and very little watching. Did you have any kind of experience like that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, some things that could be done, like could fix, like why were they having the harnesses put on them while like right before they went, like
right.
Have 2 pairs of harnesses.
Right, that seems.
Athlete gets fitted when the previous group is going, walk out, just attach the new harness. Good to go.
That seems like a no-brainer to me. Like it's just we were already, this. I think the stream was like 4 hours long, maybe.
Yeah, it's usually just over 4 hours.
Yeah, and we were at the 2.5 hour mark, and we had just finished, or we were still in maybe the second. I can't remember exactly. I should have written it down, but it was just a long time of waiting to watch stuff happen, and so. With that is my only real like event problem with the show was the wrecking ball. I think that's just major changes have to be made to that. Whatever it might be, if it needs to be heavier, if it needs to be changed so it's actually a test of grip and not like right now what it basically is a car deadlift hold with straps. And I say with straps because you can lean against your thighs and you're not really using your grip anymore. There was a part where Matt Ragg was basically squatted all the way down, kind of just looking at the timer to see like how much longer he had to hold that squat position for before he could let go of this supposed grip event. And it just doesn't. It's unclear to me, and I think it'd be unclear to anybody who's like new to the sport trying to watch it. What's being tested here? Like because it's kind of being proposed as like a grip event, but it's not really that at all.
And you see like the people who tend to be good at grip tend to be kind of bad at the wrecking ball hold, and
right.
I think it's them going into it with the idea that it is a grip event because
right.
It's you only get that at Giants Live. Giants Live, they kind of cycle through the same athletes all the time.
Right.
So like when Tristan went, he didn't have all the tricks down yet
right.
of like resting it on his thighs and stuff. Has one of the best grips in the world, maybe the best out of any active competitor right now. But he looked like he was actually hanging on to it, and then that ended up screwing him because he relied on his grip.
that was the example that I was going to use, is that like you talk about somebody with a best of the best grip, and it's Tristan Hoth, and it just didn't matter. It just didn't like it because he was, like you said, he was treating it like a grip event instead of standing with the wrecking ball event, which is it's a very specific on its own kind of thing that can't really be. You can't draw a lot of comparisons to like what like any kind of grip test or
Hercules hold
or anything like that. Like it's just not the same. It's not as pure of a form of grip as those ones are. It's the wrecking ball is clearly too light. 2 minutes is too long for any kind of a static hold event for as a viewership. It's just too damn long. And something that was funny that you pointed out. So an issue that I also had was the timer not being on the screen. When it's like that's all you can offer in this event.
Yeah,
is showing the time.
It's the only thing to watch.
It's the only thing to watch is the time. Yeah, you look back and forth to the athletes in the time. Otherwise, you're just staring at a guy who's just slowly kind of melting into his platform, and you don't know what they're chasing. And you pointed out a funny thing with the record with Novikov.
Yeah. So because Novikov, you just have no perspective when there's no movement going on, nothing happening. You can watch a car walk and see that even if there's no timer, which there wasn't for any of the events,
right.
You can see Mitch Hooper went really, really fast.
Right. And Williams went really fast. Like these were good runs there.
Yeah. But with that, with no movement, you kind of have this idea, but a very vague idea of how long an athlete's been going. And then with Alexei, it was just all of a sudden Neil Pickup just announced, oh, he's growing for the world record, 57, 58, new world record. Right. It was just sitting there watching, and then all of a sudden 3 seconds later it's a world record.
Right. And it's granted, it's not it's not a world record in the sense that say if the deadlift had been broken or the log or whatever, but it's a world record. But let's make it seem important. You know what I mean? I don't think they even said what the world record was before the event started. I don't remember hearing it. And
they might have, just because Mitch Hooper had said it pretty recently.
Okay, yeah. But it's just
but they're definitely not advertising it as it goes.
No, and it's it's especially when it's again, from trying to promote the show as feeling like a big deal, when the deadlift didn't fall, that 505 number didn't fall, shit, let's find something to make this a big deal. You know what I mean? Let's make the wrecking ball hold a big deal if the potential's there to break a record. You know what I mean? Like it was the no timer on the screen is like really baffling to me. I really don't understand that. Manitoba Strongman has a timer on our screen. So
Timer even got an upgrade.
Yeah,
for nationals.
Ours got an upgrade. They don't even have one yet. And we're getting upgrades for ours. And that's just like a huge hole. Like imagine if you're watching a hockey game and there was just no time showed on the like you couldn't see penalty minutes on the screen. Like how would you know like the severity of the situation if you don't know the time? You know what I mean? Like it struck me as very odd.
Yeah, that was a hard one not to just like end up mindlessly scrolling Instagram until like Neil Pickup says something exciting and then you turn and like, oh, he went down.
For sure. Yeah. So that's we're kind of crossing the line from talking about the production to the actual competition here. But was there anything else that you want to touch on? Oh, you know what? I have something else here. But is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of like the production or like the presentation of the event itself?
No, like I said, like I'm watching like the live stream for things that I can pick up on and
Jesus Christ
and implement. Like, but yeah, the timer missing was like kind of just always what my eye was drawn to or what I was focusing on. Like, yeah, like huge missing aspect there. So I think that was mostly it. I don't know what else you want to mention.
Did you how did you feel like the present, like if you were to just kind of score them against each other, how would you rate the presentation of the USA Strongman Championships versus like say the Strongman Classic?
Well, I know that like I would say that they've done better in the past.
Right.
I don't know about this. So the Strongman Classic venue's better. Like the venue's fantastic. Like you're not going to beat that at a Giants
and
Live.
Obviously the crowd too. Like you get like that's. But let's just talk about like with the things that they could control.
Yeah. Like it's never stuck out to me before. Like things lacking with the Giants Live too much. Like the events have been a flop. And things like that. Like I just don't like the wrecking ball hold. I think you can do away with it.
Yeah. Or at the very least make it way heavier so that it's sub 1 minute.
Yeah.
Like
I would think the easiest way to fix it would be do it behind the back, but I don't think a lot of the guys could get in that position.
No, yeah.
But then that solves the resting on your thigh issue.
Right. What they should do is they should have like say two very heavy pillars on either side of it that have chains and handles attached to it, and they just hold it like this. And that might make the wrecking ball hold a little more exciting. I think.
That might even look cooler.
Yeah, it might look cooler. It might be like I think that overall that would improve the event. But please continue.
Yeah. So I think like it's never. I can't say anything specific about what like the Strongman Classic did better, but like the production is never of the live stream itself has never stuck out to me like this one did. So
I think that for what I was going to say before with that, something that was missing for me was what I really liked about the Strongman Classic one was the introduction of new faces. We saw Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
We saw Flynn on that one. We saw help me. There was one other guy that was like a
the Scottish.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna bother me now.
Who was that? The guy that you had a crush on?
All of them.
There was like the guy with the mustache.
I don't remember.
Yeah, doesn't matter. The names don't matter to Jan, just the bodies. But but I liked seeing new guys, and I think that that's kind of becoming a thing where it's like I understand that Giants Live is being like presented as like a league, the same way that say SCL or whatever else is. So we start to see some of the same faces, but when we're talking about also having the wrecking hold, it always ends with the stones. And then we have a show where we don't see any cool new additions besides maybe like Andrade or Austin Andrade. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen like a new guy where it's like, oh cool, let's see how this guy does against all these big dogs. It started to feel like a rerun a little bit in that way to me. And like with the deadlifts not going the way that I don't think anybody really, I don't know. There was always the outside chance that somebody got 505, but I don't think anybody was really like, this is the show where it's for sure going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I would say that maybe like disappointment's not the right word, but there's just like that lack of a climax when nobody pulls the big world record deadlift, especially when it's happened on the axle and it's happened on the log.
Are we transitioning into competition commentary now?
No, but what I was going to say is that it just started to feel like it's stuff we'd seen before. Mm-hmm. We've seen Eddie Williams, we've seen Mitch. It was nice to see Trey back. Like that was like a nice addition. I guess you'd call that kind of like an addition to the thing, whatever. But I would like it if every 1 or 2 spots on the show, there was somebody where it's like, we're going to give this guy a shot or a chance, or somebody like a face that we just don't see all the time on here. We see Evan Singleton all the time. We see these guys, the Stoltmans, over and over again. And it would just be nice to see a little variation in there for me, for my money.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, I get that the big names sell tickets, but I also think like if you're always going to be inviting the top guys, then the show also needs to be heavier.
Right.
Like, I was looking at the car walk scores before we started, and like obviously Mitch is super fast. Like judging the how appropriate the weight is on Mitch, it's always going to be too light.
It's not really fair. Yeah.
But like the times were all in between 10 seconds and 28, and that was Alexei Novikov, who was definitely having some issues.
Right.
And you take him out, and it's like 10 seconds and 22 seconds. So like Mitch being also 6 seconds ahead of third place, you had like 8 competitors,
right.
7 competitors who are within 6 seconds.
Right. Very
and
tight.
when you're getting scores that close, it's just it's probably too light. And it sounds weird to say for 1,000 pounds and like an awkward implement like a car, that 1,000 pounds is too light. But
these guys are that good.
Yeah, you have like Canada's Strongest Man. The yoke is 1,000, right?
Yeah.
So, and I would say Giants Live should probably be a step up.
For sure. Of course. Yeah.
Not that Canada's Strongest Man is an easy show either, but
no, but it's perceived as being like that next step, right? You would win Canada's Strongest Man, and hopefully that propel you to a Giants Live spot. And I agree with that too. And I think, like you said, like the problem that we come up with is when you make these shows heavier, it starts to change them from being this sort of like just during the season upper mid show to suddenly becoming something bigger and heavier. And we saw 4 guys pull out of this show with injury. You know, and it was like that. It was pretty shocking to see that many guys. It was just like dropping. Like it felt like it was like an old like WSM, like from like the late 80s, early 90s, where they had these really dangerous, crazy events, and guys were just getting hurt all the time. That you'd see by the end of the thing, there'd be 3 guys withdrawn from almost every WSM, and that becomes the problem. Is that like these guys can compete at these shows as regularly as they do because they're a little bit lighter, but they're also almost too light in some. It's a very tough balance to strike.
Yeah, and I mean, mind you, they're not getting injured because of this one show.
No.
Like it's the accumulation of the season,
right,
is wearing them down, and you know, small injuries build up, but then I've already committed to this other show.
Right.
And these guys want to put on a performance. They don't want to have to pull out of shows.
No.
But yeah, so I think Giants Live would be such a great opportunity to just like cycle through, like have a. I think like SCL, I think they do it where they have a list of athletes that is like their roster. It would be really cool if Giants Live just had like a roster and it was publicly known who was on the Giants Live roster, and have it be like, what do they do? 4 Giants Live shows plus Britain's?
Yep.
So 5. Obviously Britain's is going to be more exclusive, but for the other 4, have a roster of like 20 athletes and get them all to do 2 of the 4.
Sure, that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, and I would like to have seen, say, like Wes Derwinski do another one. He's the only one he's doing this year is the Glasgow one. Like after his performances that he's had at the big shows, I would love to see him have done this exact show. I think this would have been an interesting show just to see him in. He's he could have done quite well. But yeah, so let's get a little bit more into. We've kind of already started dipping our toe into it here, but like the actual performance of the athletes in the competition, ignoring the production quality and stuff now, and just seeing like how the actual competition was for these guys.
Starting with deadlift?
Starting with the deadlift, yeah. So kind of treated as its own separate competition, sort of, was the World Deadlift Championships, which is funny because I think it was Alec Jose who said on his podcast that they have the axle press World Championships, they have the deadlift World Championships, and then they have the log press challenge.
Yeah,
because Big Z owns the the right to the term log press World Championships, which is awesome. Good for Big Z.
I think this is the first year that they had to change the name. So I guess Big Z put some pressure on them.
He finally said it. Yeah, he's like, I own this shit. Like maybe they paid him before, they just didn't want to pay him this year. I don't know.
Maybe
get that money though, Big Z. So let's start with, because you were a guy where I really like to hear your insights on this stuff, and I think that a lot of people will like to hear it too. Going into this competition, let's say, who did you think had an over 80% shot of pulling 505?
Nobody.
Man,
2020 Thor did.
Like I kind of felt the same way going into it, where I felt like it's like we're kind of trying to manufacture this hype and this excitement when I just don't think anybody is there right now. It's such a high number.
If you were to ask me like 4 months ago, I would say Graham Hicks 50-50.
Yeah.
But like his training looked like it was taking off.
Yeah.
It was looking really good, and then he just kind of seemed to get to a certain level and kind of hover there. But he is like last year's World Deadlift Championships. I didn't think that he was going to do as good as he did either. Right. So, I did have that reservation of like he does seem to be like a guy who can perform when it matters as long as he stays injury free. But he underperformed, and there was a video. He had some issues, some water retention due to the travel. Suit didn't fit right. Tried to make an adjustment on the 470 after he did the 1,000-pound deadlift, and that's what threw him off for the 470. So there was maybe some outside issues. You know, I can't remember the last time Graham traveled to compete. It was probably Worlds 2021.
Yeah, it would have been quite some time ago, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it can be hard to remember all those small details. So, sure. Unfortunate. If all that is true, and you know his training, he did think that it was getting him ready for the 505. Love to see him do it in the future still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have given him the best shot a few months ago, but then his training closer to, I was giving him a good chance, anticipating an improvement.
Right. When I was going into it, I would have picked Makarov as the most. Makarov as Hicks as the most likely. But as we started watching the pulls progressing, Makarov was just not. It wasn't moving at a great speed. The bar for him.
I think this was his worst. It's weird to say worst attempt at 505 kilograms.
Right. Yeah. The worst attempt at a world record you've ever seen. But
like he's gotten it to his knees multiple times,
yeah.
and this time he barely broke it off the floor.
Yeah, it just wasn't there for him today, or that day, and it wasn't. Even 2 lifts before that, it just wasn't really convincing.
His 1,000 from last year, where he skipped the 470 to jump to 505, but his 1,000 from last year, I think, was still probably the fastest 1,000-pound deadlift I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he didn't seem to be in the same form this year, which is a shame because I think that he's a cool looking guy, and I want to see him pull a 505. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like, and I've talked to you about this before, but I feel like when he burst onto the scene and it was in the chase, everyone got really, really excited.
Yeah,
and then like 2 years into that, people were like, "Okay, come on, man! Like, just stop, just like ripping 505 to your knees," and then
yeah.
And now his persistence, I think, has won people back over. Where now they just want him to succeed because of how much time he has invested into this chase.
It's like a fairy tale story now, where it's like you got to do this, man.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to believe that this was for nothing, you know.
And he said he's taking 2 years, 2 years off before his next attempt.
Really?
Now.
Wow.
Yeah, he posted to Instagram.
That's a long-term plan.
I think he said partly for health.
Like he's gonna go down a little bit in body weight and stuff, maybe, or
I don't know if he has much body fat to lose.
Not much body fat, no, but he carries a lot of fucking muscle on that frame.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It was Instagram translated, so
right.
Hard to say how much was accurate. But yeah, like he mentioned going down for health, and I think for him this is probably going to be a good thing because I don't know if he has a coach, or if he does his own training. But what he's been trying hasn't really seemed to be paying off.
No.
So maybe this is an opportunity to experiment, try something new. And, if he's back in 2 years, I still hope he gets it.
Yeah,
I still want him to. Like, he's one of my favorites.
If you've never seen a picture of Ivan Makarov's back, do yourself a favor and go ahead and do that because he's.
I found the videos of him walking even like more impressive because like it just looks like it's like animated or AI generated. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he's such a freak.
His body like forgot where to put more muscle on, so it just kind of like stuck it in random places. Just like he just looks lumpy.
Yeah, he's sick. Rauno Heinla was more convincing in his later pulls than Makarov was, and all of a sudden he was becoming like, oh, maybe he could pull something off cool here. But unfortunately, that didn't end up happening for him. Speaking of Hicksy, a little bit of a scary one with him too there, where he kind of lost either his balance or maybe kind of lost his wits for a minute, and he fell forward with the figure eights on. And if you ever wonder why we're not going to be allowing figure eights in Manitoba Strongman, none of you are as experienced as Graham Hicks. So if you guys eat shit the way that he did on that, you are going to eat shit in a way that he didn't. He was he saved himself pretty well, especially considering that he was, best case scenario off balance, worst case scenario maybe a little loopy from the big pull, and managed to protect himself pretty well. But that could have been a really ugly faceplant if not for that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it when I was on the podcast last time. That's how Adam Bishop tore his tricep.
Right. Yeah. It's you got to be careful with those figure eights, man. They're an excellent tool to be used, but you got to know yourself too. You got to know when the lights are starting to dim, when it's time to start putting that weight down. So somebody else who I think that wasn't really in the conversation, even though, which is kind of strange because he's like a fucking great deadlifter and great strongman, but Mitch Hooper wasn't really somebody that anybody really talked about as potentially taking the record, and he got as close as anybody did, really. Like, he was
He had the best attempt for sure.
Yeah. So I was listening to his thing about it, and he was saying that he thinks at a different time, different, whatever, blah blah blah. It wasn't there that day, but he thinks that he could do it. He thinks that it's there, and he's one of those guys where if he says that he can do something, I'm inclined to believe him. Mm-hmm. He also said that he's like, oh yeah, I got that close despite that I did 20,000 steps the day before, walking all over Vegas, and I had blisters all over my feet. And I was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that before the biggest deadlift competition in the world. But Mitch is his own guy. He does things a little differently than some of the more traditional athletes do things, I think. Like pre-comp stuff, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been the type, like, he's not, like, I don't know, competing, he kind of just seems to look at like any other day.
Yeah. He really does. Like, he doesn't seem to modify his behavior too much.
No, like if he was in Vegas, he would be sightseeing.
Right.
He's in Vegas, so he's sightseeing,
Yeah.
Good and bad to that. Like, some athletes definitely get in their own head. And if anyone's ever been at a competition that I've been competing at, knows that I lean towards Mitch's kind of attitude about the whole thing. I also am not the type to go sightseeing, so that wouldn't happen to me. But I can't say if I was him, I would do anything different though.
Right. If you had an athlete, let's say that you could pick this like personality type, A or B, where A is that they do kind of what Mitch does, where it's like, I'm not really thinking about it too much, I'm off doing my own thing, to the point where it becomes a bit of an afterthought in that way, where they might do things like take 20,000 steps the day before and be a little fatigued and tired, or you have somebody who kind of hyper focuses on it, and that's all that's on their mind, and you have to manage one of those two. Which one would you prefer as a coach?
I'd probably prefer to work with the person who hyper fixates on the competition, just because it would be a lot less of a headache, or a lot, not even a headache, I shouldn't say that, a lot less stressful for the coach.
Right.
You're kind of you're shifting that stress between the coach and the athlete. Somebody's gonna have it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
that's true.
Yeah. So actually, yeah.
I think I would lean towards that too myself. I think it'd be easier to convince someone to chill out a little bit than to care more. You know what I mean? Like, it was, that's what I would lean towards. And especially because I definitely have that with people who hyperfixate, and I have to talk them down a little bit. So I have a little more experience with that, I think, than the latter, or than the former, sorry. So we had probably what I would call, I wouldn't say probably, I would say objectively, the deadlift of the day was Trey Mitchell coming back from a really rough Achilles injury that he's still in the comeback phase of right now.
I'd say he's back.
I'd say he's back after this show. Yeah. He didn't miss a beat on this one. 470 kilograms with no suit.
Strongman raw.
Strongman raw, as they call it, right? So the heaviest raw strongman deadlifting competition, I believe someone said.
What was Benny? Because I know Benny didn't like. Oh, did he? No, he did suits. Who am I thinking of? Jerry Pritchett didn't do suits.
Yeah. So I have to check that number, but somebody told me that, and I was like, well, I could believe it. His deadlift was awesome.
I think Jerry's is 465, so I think it is the heaviest.
Oh, there you go then. And I'm not really one of those people that are like, oh, well, all these other pussies were wearing suits and he wasn't. But it's just objectively, it's impressive when you take away that thing. Like, I think that if you're allowed to wear suits, you probably should. But objectively, if someone's like, I'm just not going to, and they still pull an awesome number without it, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, man, you give him a suit and get him trained for a month, and I think that 505 is going up.
Yeah, I think that's worth considering too. Is that, like, is he leaving pounds on the table by not taking the time to, I don't know his training cycle or training plan or anything, but not using a suit. If he focused on that a little bit and trained that, the way he moved 470, that doesn't seem like it would be like out of this world at all. Did you have anything more you wanted to add to the deadlift portion of the thing?
I got a couple points. One, I would say about like, Trey deciding whether or not to use a suit. Trey, I don't think is the type to want the records. Like that just seems like too much attention for me to think that he wants it.
Right.
I think he's looking at the full show. He's
Right.
like, I don't lose points on deadlifts.
Right.
This like using a suit, maybe the heavier weight, he's like, that would beat me up in training. So if I don't wear the suit, I can recover better. I can train the other events harder. I can get more points by the end of the competition. And because he hasn't practiced with a suit, he's not going to introduce it on game day.
And that's fair enough.
It could be a trade, even though he's a very reserved guy. And he doesn't look like the type to be like a Brian Shaw kind of type. I think he is. I think he's really cerebral about his training. And I think, if he thought that a suit would get him better placings in competition, I'm sure that he would at least give it a shot.
And that's the thing too, is that these guys, like, I don't think very many of them are running on pride anymore at this level. Like I know that some guys are like, I'm not using those suits there for pussies, whatever. I'm like the quote unquote purist of strongman, whatever that could possibly mean.
Suits been allowed forever.
Right,
that is
exactly.
pure strongman.
Yeah, and I've heard that before too, where it's like, you guys use your suits and I'm gonna blah blah blah. Like, I think that once you get to that level that they're at, like, you have to throw that pride out the window. If you're leaving points on the table, if you're leaving prize money on the table, you have to swallow your pride and learn to use the equipment that's allowed to you. But like you said, if it's going to become a hindrance to learn it, and you're going to get a point more in a competition, and you have to take away training from something else that could be more valuable to you, that just doesn't make sense either. And like you said, he's a bit of a cerebral competitor, and probably more so now post injury too. I think that when something like that happens and you have to kind of revamp your whole game plan, you probably start thinking about things a little more carefully too, if he wasn't already that way before.
Yeah. The other two quick things that I'd like to mention on the deadlifts itself. Sure. One, Eddie Williams, just want to give him a shout out.
Yeah.
Not known as a guy with a big deadlift. I think his competition PR before this was 365.
Yeah, awesome.
And he pulled 425,
Amazing,
a 60 kilo
new Australian
PR.
record, I think they said too, right?
Actually, Mitch Hooper has the Australian record, 475.
He pulled that much back back then?
That was the video that got him an invite to World's Strongest Man.
Holy shit, I didn't realize he pulled that much back then.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Because that was, I think I told you, was it? Yeah, I told you this. I seen that video reposted by World's Strongest Fan, and I was like, damn, that's insane. I'm going to go follow that guy. And he had like 800 followers.
Yeah.
And I followed him, and he sent me a message.
Right.
That's how new he was. He sent me a message, and he's like, hey, thanks for the follow. Is there anything I can help you with? I was like, oh, no, just seen your deadlift. It was awesome. I want to see like how you progress.
And who could have guessed, eh?
Yeah.
Who could have guessed that a couple years later he would have 20 consecutive podium finishes at pro shows?
7 out of 8 wins or 7 wins in his last 8 comps.
Amazing.
But yeah, so Eddie Williams, huge shout out there.
Yes, absolutely. And the whole competition, not just the deadlift for him. It was a huge competition.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to more about him. But I was like, if he gets this 800, like he's gonna do really, like that'll be really good for him. So really happy to see that. And then the other thing, I really think that this deadlift championships was a passing of the torch a bit in who is in that hunt for the 505. Like Graham Hicks, Makarov, and Heinle. I'm not saying that like they should stop or anything, or they have no chance. But I don't see any of those three as front runners. And now it's Hooper, Trey, and Andrade.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Andrade too is somebody that's like, it's hard
If
to
he
believe.
didn't pass out with that 470, it was flying.
Yeah, is that he if you didn't see it, he fell back, and it was, as close as you can possibly get to getting it without getting it. Pretty much, like it was virtually at lockout, and he fell backwards and it kind of rolled up him while he was on the ground. But it's pretty incredible to think of Andrade as a guy who just like wasn't really on the scene until very recently, and just making crazy noise, like just like in every competition he does. Like he does the Shaw, does great there, does this giant slide, does great there. Like he's just a guy where it's like he's
and earning his spot to Shaw by winning the Open.
Exactly, and that's what I mean is that like only a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, he was not on these shows at all, like any of these shows, and now he's cracking the top half and having these great performances. Like
finals at Worlds, didn't even mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like he's awesome. Like he's going to be a guy where if he can keep the trajectory he's on, he's going to be somebody to watch very carefully in the next few years. Anything else you want to add to the deadlift?
No, that's everything.
Okay. So following the deadlift, we had the car yoke. Well, following that, we had a long break, and then we had the car yoke. And aside from, like, Eddie Williams had a really good run on this one too. Kind of showed that this might be a competition for him.
Novikov and Singleton both injured.
Yeah.
Both didn't have great runs and events that they should pick up a lot of points on.
And Evan dropped out after this event, I think, right?
Yeah, despite telling Neil Pickup
that he wasn't going.
we pushed through. We're in America. We're gonna push through. Pulled out.
Yeah, he had to pull out.
And not criticizing him. Just unfortunate circumstances.
Just a comment that didn't age super well.
No.
Didn't age about an hour all that well. But he, I've said before, like he's got to. Once he gets rid of that chin strap, I'll consider being a fan of his, but not now. Singleton's a guy too, where it's like he's a perennial favorite to be on the podium whenever he does those shows. So it really sucks to see him have to drop out of a show like this, especially when it's like you're in the U.S. in Las Vegas trying to appeal to an American audience. Here's the big fucking American guy.
He's from Vegas too, isn't he?
That's what they said. He says his home turf.
Yeah.
So it really is a shame when he has to drop out like that. And having seen the way that he competes, I really think that somebody must have sat him down and be like, you have to, like, you cannot continue this competition. Like, I don't think that's a decision that he would take very lightly.
Well, and like he posted on Instagram too. He said like, this is the fourth show in a row that he's had to come on and make I didn't live up to what I'm capable of post.
Right.
It's like, probably. I don't know if he has an invite to Rogue, but I think he really needs to take some time off.
I think so too. There's a couple guys on that list that need to take some time off.
Yeah.
Like Novikov being the top of it probably.
Yeah. Novikov. I don't know what his situation is, like, especially with everything going on in Ukraine.
It's
like,
hard to say, yeah.
If maybe he relies on these like contest winnings.
Sure.
Which is a really crappy situation to be in. Maybe he doesn't have that option to take time off, but he is not performing where everybody wants to see Novikov perform.
Right.
He's still showing up to competitions and being the youngest competitor.
Yeah.
Like like Shaw. He was the youngest competitor at Shaw. Like, he still has so much potential.
Yeah.
But if he keeps pushing through injuries,
yeah, it's he's closing his window faster than it has to be closed. Anyway, back to the car yoke though. We saw Hooper just do what he does with every kind of yoke style event and just crush it. He like aside from the one that where it was yoke into circus dumbbell, he's never lost a yoke event, I don't think, right?
no.
But our boy Lucas Hatton took that one from him though, so shout out Lucas Hatton. But he so that was I didn't have a ton on that event. It came and went pretty quickly.
No, like no real stand-up performances. Eddie Williams getting second was awesome, but he is good at those. He's good at moving events. And then the injuries.
Yeah.
And Tom Solman also was a slower than he would like to be, I'm sure, but he ended up pulling out. Was it after this or after the dumbbell?
I think that it was after the dumbbell. I think. Shoot. But he wasn't. He only if he made any more, he only made one more. So after following the car yoke, it was the dumbbell, was it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was after the car yoke he pulled out.
Okay. So the circus dumbbell was a head-to-head 200 pounds, I believe it was 100 kilograms.
100 kilograms, 220.
220, excuse me. Sorry, 220. A funny note for that one was I was watching it with Jeanne, and she was like, she didn't like the aesthetic of the dumbbells themselves.
I like those dumbbells.
See, and that's funny because I didn't really notice it until she said something, and I was like, she's like it looks plasticky. It doesn't look heavy.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
And I was like, and then I said to her, I was like, you know what it looks like? It looks like the chains that you buy for Halloween decorations, where it's like it looks like it could be kind of heavy, then you pick it up and it's just very like light and plasticky. And I kind of like, now once she said that, I was like, fuck, it's like I can't really ignore it anymore. It doesn't look that cool. But
platform is too. It's like it bounces like it's nothing.
That was an issue.
That was a major issue that they had, was the bounciness of that platform. That's a risky thing to have 220 pounds bouncing around like that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't really remember that many people missing a rep on the dumbbell.
Yeah.
It seemed like especially among the top guys, the people who won were the ones who were able to control the dumbbell
Right.
On the floor better.
Yeah.
Which, not like technique is part of strongman and stuff, but ultimately you'd like to see it as controlled for as possible.
Right.
Like with that event, especially a super technical event like that, like, you know, how many people have practiced a controlled eccentric with the dumbbell going into that competition, because they don't know. But I mean, yeah, it should be prepared for anything too, I guess, would be the response.
But you want to have a certain like baseline of like, we'll be taking care of as athletes though too, that this thing's not going to pop up and potentially hit me in the face if I bend down too low. The winning reps was like 7, I think, right? It was seven reps.
7
for
Hooper, and I think somebody tied him. Dumbbell Trey Mitchell.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Two Mitchells. So it like, I think for my money, I'd like to see it a little bit heavier. Maybe I think that 7 is kind of a lot of reps to see on a show like this. But again, we're going back to the same thing where it's like this is a little bit of a lighter show compared to some of the shows that these guys do where they have 250 and 260 and that kind of stuff in their hands.
But it'd be that's a great weight for like an up and comer.
Sure.
So like come in and
absolutely.
get 3 to 5 reps.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that if nothing else, when you have someone, let's say like that, let's use that Andrew Flynn guy as an example. He was very good, don't get me wrong, but when he comes in and he gets 3, and he's like a big jack looking guy and he looks the part, it really kind of demonstrates like these guys that can get 7 are really doing something. You know what I mean? Like they're really accomplishing something by getting that many reps. Because I think it can be kind of easy to get lost in that when everybody's hitting good numbers on it. If you have a couple guys that are not hitting as hot of numbers on it, but are still holding their own and still doing it, that's kind of something that we like at on a local level. Even is that if we do Manitoba Strongest Man, I don't wish for anyone to 0. But it's not the worst thing when it happens, especially in the early things, because then guys, the crowd sees that's like, okay, this is not something that just anybody can do. These guys are training for this. This is their sport that they're trying to compete in, and this guy still couldn't get this one, so that means it must be fucking heavy. And I can appreciate that from like a promoter's perspective, where it's like it makes so when that last guy goes, or when this last 3 guys go or whatever, and they bang out 4, 5, 6 reps with it, you're like, wow, these guys are really. It's really, really impressive, and it helps to build that anticipation.
Or when everyone's zeroing, and then the last guy comes in and saves the day.
Absolutely,
like a truck pull.
Like a truck pull
might
of some
have happened.
kind. Yeah, and then we rely on 2 guys to pull it. Yeah. So anything more on the circus dumbbell on that one? That was a pretty straightforward
no,
one. I felt like
it was about the performances that we expected. Obviously, we would anticipate Novikov doing better again.
Yeah.
But that's just a recurring theme. He was injured. It's all he could have done. And yeah, just having the platform a bit more steady, a bit more controlled.
Right.
Usually they have crash mats at the front.
Yeah.
They didn't do that for
Not
this
the
one.
case this time. One thing I wanted to add before we get too far away from the deadlift, if you're one of these people that I don't know any of them in real life, I only see them on the internet. But if you're one of these like Thor naysayers, like the people who say that the 501 didn't count or whatever, the fact that you can, if you can still say that with a straight face after, because it's always like, oh, he did it on his own time and he was blah 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 whatever, like he was he got to time his own breaks and shit. If you can still say that after Mitch Hooper requests 8 minutes to sit and chill during a live broadcast of a competition to make an attempt that he revealed later that he did not think he was going to get. He was like, I was about 5% sure I was going to get that. You don't have a leg to stand on anymore with that. And not to mention, as you pointed out, with like that was already the case with Eddie too in the first one too. Like it's
Eddie took much longer rest. There was like 16, 17 minutes of downtime.
There's nothing you can point to anymore to as why Thor's deadlift wouldn't count anymore unless you work for Giants Live. That's the only way that I can understand it still.
And I think you had a good point too, because you mentioned like, sure, take the rest for the record, but once you change the rules of the competition,
right?
If you're like, I could do this, but I need more time, and everyone else was told you're going out now. Once you change those rules, that shouldn't count to your points.
No, and it was the same thing with the axle press where he's like, he missed it. He's like, if I go away and come back for a little bit, I can get this. Great, but this is the end of your turn. You've left the platform. That's the end of your attempt here in competition. And then they'll, if Giants Live is going to sanction one more attempt for the record or whatever. But those points don't count towards the competition anymore. In my mind, at least, that's the way it should be. Okay, so following the circus dumbbell, we had the wrecking ball hold. That's correct, right?
Yep.
We already went over this one pretty thoroughly. Not either of our favorite events. Time for some changes to it. Time for a subbing in of something else in my mind.
Yeah.
Unless they make like major changes, like they're on like a seal row bench of some kind or something, and like the thing is just hanging out in front of them.
Yeah, and like results are really not what you would anticipate if it was really testing grip. Like Eddie Williams did pretty good, but like Eddie Williams also probably has one of the best grips in the world.
Right.
Pretty sure he's done like a 300 kilogram double overhand deadlift just on a whim.
Amazing.
And yeah, he's getting, mid pack.
Right. Yeah. It's not testing
on
grip.
A grip event.
It's just testing. It's like a willpower test, which I can understand on some level. And they kind of say that too. It's like a test of your ability to withstand pain and stuff. But it's like, well, then let's just burn them with cigarettes then. Like it's not testing the strength in the way that we want it to. Jan, do you got to pee?
Yeah.
Go pee.
Thank you.
So I would say that if they insist on keeping this event, they got to figure out a way to make the grip so it's actually a grip, and they got to increase the load. Or I guess they wouldn't have to increase the load if they made it just actually a grip event.
Yeah. I think if you don't want to I get that not every athlete could do like a behind the back, and you don't want to be obstructing them with a bench, but like make a frame handle like an open trap bar kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Attach the wrecking ball to that. Like there's tons of options.
That's a very simple idea that accomplishes the exact same thing. That's a great way to put that. Anything more on the wrecking ball hold?
No, not really. Not much to talk about.
Fuck that event. The stones. So for me, the story of the stones was in the very. If you have more, please. I'm excited to hear about it. But Trey Mitchell just manhandling that run and really putting the punctuation on like, oh, he's back, he's good, like he's healthy again.
Yeah, I was, the car walk and the stones was kind of the events that I was anticipating Trey kind of taking the longest to come back for. Actually, how did he do on placings wise on the car walk? He got 16.8 seconds, so he was the lower end of mid pack.
Right.
But
if you had to pick one event that he's going to baby and go a little slower, it's like certainly going to be a yoke.
That one, and then the stones just having to extend onto your toes.
Sure.
I was anticipating, even if it's not actively painful, maybe he's only just gotten back to training it. So maybe it'd be a bit under prepared. Mm-hmm. But no, he crushed that stone run. Flew through it while Mitch Hooper was
struggling.
It was I don't even know what to call it. Not I guess fumbling
yeah,
with
slipping
the first stone, which was just, I think, him just wanting to keep pace with Trey.
Yeah,
seeing how fast Trey threw that up there, and he was like, I gotta launch this, and then he just didn't quite have the velocity on it, didn't get high enough, and
the first two were a bit of a struggle for him, and then he kind of found a rhythm after that. But it was and the fucking, I said to you, like, the announcer sitting there talking about Mitch struggling with the first stone. I'm like, Trey's on the fucking fourth stone now. Like, talk about what's happening on the good side, But really, really heartening to see like an awesome run from Trey. It looked like the stone lifting Trey of old. Didn't look like he was missing anything from some of the crazy stone. A lot of his crazy stone stuff is like one heavy stone at a time or whatever, but it really reminded you of like how good he really is at stones and how much of a threat he is with that being the last event.
Yeah, and actually, just as you were saying that, I don't, because you mentioned one heavy stone at a time. I don't remember how he did at the Shaw. I don't remember his stone really standing out. Like Andrade stood out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't remember what Trey ended up finishing with there. But I mean, given that it wasn't, Trey is his second best stone lifter in the world right now. Right. I mean, maybe Thor's back into that spot behind Tom, but like him not having that kind of performance at Shaw really shows like how much he is.
But his deadlift was also way less at the Shaw too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I think that it might have been calculated to be like I'm going to go to this percent of what I feel comfortable with rather than this percent of what I can do. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're talking about his max deadlift and stuff, where it's like if I can do 100% of the weight that I'm comfortable with, and then maybe at the Giants Live he did 100% of what he could do that day. You know what I mean? Like it's
just that last like turning point of recovery.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everyone who's had a major injury kind of knows that point of where like it hasn't bothered you, but you're aware of it, and you're nervous about it, and then you cross that bridge where you do a session and you're like, where did that hurt exactly? Like I remember like my knee hurt, but like it was like a pinpoint. Like you could have, if somebody asked like where does it hurt, you'd put your finger right on it.
Right.
And then you gotta like, you kind of cross that bridge and it's like, where did it hurt? Oh, like the front of my knee. no, but like, can you touch it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like in that area.
This general sort of spot.
Yeah, it becomes like a memory of a pain.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So final standings for the show: Mitchell Hooper, first place. Not any genuine shock there with that. Like it was a good show for him in terms of the events. The Giants live shows he tends to really do well in them.
Yeah,
and
he's on track to putting himself among the greats right now. Like,
there's no doubt.
I would even say like he could potentially be top 5 all time already.
Yeah. His consistency is insane. Like
how active he is.
Yep. The only show the only major, he's only done majors. The only major that he didn't podium on was his very first one at Worlds. Me and Thrones were looking this up. He podiumed his next show, the Shaw Classic, in third place, and then just kept doing it from there.
Strongman Classic, but his next major was Shaw.
Right. Sorry. Yes. So he he doesn't seem to have reached like any kind of like a peak or anything yet. Like he's still improving on things. Numbers are still going up. Like he's still.
Deadlift took a massive jump out of nowhere. He did change his technique. Maybe it was he had switched to a wider stance. That was for the Arnold last year.
Yeah,
he switched technique.
He's still a young guy too.
Yeah,
like he's a lot of these strongmen will trick you with their faces about how old they are, but he's like in his late 20s.
He's 2 months younger than me.
Yeah, so it's pretty incredible. It's definitely not insane to think that in the next 2-3 years that we're talking about who's the best of all time, Big Z or Mitch Hooper.
Like he's gonna rack up the same, maybe not the exact same amount of hardware, because Big Z competed a lot locally too.
Right.
But if you filter out international competitions, I'm pretty sure Big Z has 67 was the number. I think I remember that from a Laws video. That might be 67 wins.
Right.
But Hooper's got 20 podiums.
Right. That's wild.
So if it is total shows, then then 20 podiums versus 67 international competitions, like those are comparable statistics.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. So taking this from the broad scope of the international scene to a more local level. So on November 7th, we have November 7th or 9th? November 9th, we have Iron Claw, our Manitoba Grip Sports very first competition, the first ever grip competition that I'm aware of being held in Manitoba. We're doing it right here at Iron Age. We're going to have the national grip champion, James Jeffers, coming in, former Western Canada Strongest Man, second place at Canada Strongest Man this year. Maybe a guy to watch out for in the next few years. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But he's going to come down here and help us out and judge for us. And if you were a guy who what I'm hearing a lot about this is like, my grip sucks. I don't want to do that. My grip sucks. Motherfucker, my grip sucks, and I'm doing it, okay? And if you're a guy who your grip sucks, well, maybe there's something to be learned from coming down and competing in front of a national champion in grip. I don't know. Maybe. Like we'll find out, I guess. It's $40 to enter, so we kept the nice and low entry for everybody just to come in and check it out. We're really excited for that. We're going to start keeping records in the province for grip sport stuff, so that'll be the first one that basically show up and you'll get a record. That's going to kind of be that's going to be kind of what it is.
You got to win.
You got to win. Yeah, you got to do well. But there's a wide array of classes and stuff, so there's options for everybody.
Maybe that Massonomics shirt. But grip sport record holder.
Absolutely. By weight class and age, phase of the moon. Hey, shout out Massonomics too, because every so often they leave a comment on our stuff and let us know they're paying attention. We really appreciate that.
Speaking of shout outs.
Alcozy does that too.
Speaking of shout outs, sponsors.
TBD.
Okay.
We got to figure that out.
My bad.
We got to figure that out.
Edit that out.
But thank you for being on the ball with that. So we are. Hey, if anybody wants to sponsor, you let us know, because we're here, we're hardworking, we're ready for it. On November 23rd, myself and Gianne will be in Iceland competing in the Magnus. Well, I'll be competing. She'll be. Are you going to compete?
I don't think so.
You think list the Hoosfell?
Yeah,
like Sam did when Max went.
Yeah, I'll be competing in Iceland, and Gianne will be there coaching me, and we're gonna have right here again in Iron Age. The WRPF Deep Freeze. It's a push-pull, so it's bench and deadlift only. It's going to be run by my man, Michael Thrones here. We started to see a nice little little uptick in registration for that. Not from the powerlifting community, mind you, but from strongman guys. So that's cool. If I'll say it while Michael Thrones is sitting here right next to me, so you can attach a face to the statement, is that we are doing this. He's our meet director, and once the costs are covered, the funds go to my main man Michael here. He is a student who works really, really hard to keep things afloat with me in this gym here, and with Strong Manitoba, and with powerlifting in Manitoba. He does a lot of things behind the scenes that you guys maybe don't see and aren't aware of. And this is a great opportunity to give a little something back to him for all the hard work that he puts in, even for the goddamn MPA. So I'll just say that now. So thanks for helping us out with that. We appreciate it.
If you want to see some of the behind the scenes things, tune into the Nationals live stream.
There you go.
Exactly next week.
Absolutely. We're going to see some really cool stuff at the WRPF meet. Scott hit 430 for a very easy double here on bench press. If things keep going the way they're going, I'd be very surprised if we didn't have a 500-pound bench presser in the gym by then. Can we anticipate anything big from Ladanian that day?
His training is going really well right now. He hit a little bit of a slump in training, or a bit of a plateau. I'll say plateau. It wasn't a slump. He still deadlifts at 700 pretty comfortably at Deadlift for Dreams. So, but yeah, like his training's taken off in the last couple weeks. So,
great.
Hopefully a big pull from him. His bench has been constantly improving. So, should see a PR bench. Should see a big pull.
Awesome. So, there's gonna be some big numbers there. If you're interested in competing, there's still time. We're gonna probably cut registration like 4 weeks out. So towards the end of October. But if you're thinking about it, get signed up. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a quick day, and it's a great opportunity to get yourself involved in another Fed. There's something new in the province that's coming in, trying to get its footing. You know, if you love the sport of powerlifting, it'd be a great way to help support. And
since this will be the last podcast that comes out before Nationals starts, make sure to tune in for Strongest Woman in Canada.
Yes,
Friday, 6 p.m. That's New Brunswick time.
New Brunswick time. So
they're 2 hours ahead, so it'll be like 4 p.m. our time.
Yes,
Manitoba time.
That's safe to say. Yes.
I think double check that, and then SEC Amateur Nationals. That door's not getting answered. SEC Amateur Nationals. That'll be Saturday next week, October 12th.
Yep.
And I believe that one starts at 9 a.m. Their time, so that'll be like 7 a.m. Manitoba time.
Okay.
Bright and early, 5 a.m. in BC.
Yeah, get up early and watch it. If you care about the sport, you'll be up watching it. Okay. But the beautiful part about the stream is that you can flick through and rewind and stuff. So just tune in.
YouTube stream, so you can scroll back.
Yep. Tune in whenever you got your time. And then on Sunday it's the record breakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
don't have a time for that.
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
Not sure with them. That one's usually a little bit more freestyle. Everyone's usually quite burnt out after the Saturday, so I'm sure that'll be a TBD on the time for that one. Once everyone kind of gets up and has a cup of coffee and is feeling okay. Thrones, do you have anything else you wanted to add about any stuff we talked about today?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. So with that, we will end our first episode. Our first episode of our new rebranding, our cool new thing of Iron Age Radio. Thanks to everybody who's paid attention. Thanks for everybody who's kind of followed us along in this. RIP to Beeks and Devin, and we'll see you guys next week.